clock, I'm Lulu Kabu. The government needs to control the country's growth rate if it wants to combat poverty and joblessness. That's according to population specialist Dr. Piet Wolfhard. His statement comes as the world population reaches 7 billion. South Africa's population is currently estimated at 50 million people, with confirmation expected following the completion of the census 2011. The country is battling high rates of unemployment, housing backlog and a widening gap between rich and poor. Wolfhard explains.
And if the growth rate is faster than the economic growth rate, then you are developing problems in that sense of catering for the human population in South Africa, for instance. It's all got to do with carrying capacity. It's food supplies, space, housing supply, and fresh water supplies. Everything is placed into jeopardy because there are too many people.
The Health Minister, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, has assisted in the delivery of a baby girl to symbolize the world's population reaching the 7 billion mark. Elizabeth Mashidisho's daughter entered the world through a caesarean section at the Mankweng Hospital in Limpopo this morning. The baby, who is yet to be named, is Mashidisho's third child. Motsoaledi says while this is a cause for celebration, the rise in population figures has some implications.
It also has challenges to the world and to different countries. Challenges in terms of provision of education, of healthcare, provision of housing, provision of water, other social services, jobs. We need to look into all those issues as we symbolize the arrival of the 7th billionth person on the planet.
The symbolic births are being observed all over the world. The DA's legal counsel, Owen Rogers, has argued in the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein that President Jacob Zuma's appointment of the National Director of Public Prosecutions, Menzisi Melani, was done against a controversial background. The DA says there were a lot of unanswered questions about the appointment of Simelane following the dismissal of his predecessor, Vusi Pikoli. The appeal court case is a sequel to a decision by the North Gauteng High Court in Pretoria last year, when the DA was unsuccessful in its bid to have the court set aside Zuma's appointment of Simelane. The DA argues that Zuma's decision to appoint Simelane is not a rational one. The widow of slain Western Cape High Court Judge Patrick Maqubela and her co-accused have pleaded not guilty to a murder charge. They are accused of murdering the judge in his Bantry Bay home in June 2009. Thandi Maqubela has also pleaded not guilty to a charge of forgery and fraud relating to the last will of her husband. The trial finally got underway this morning after numerous postponements. President Jacob Zuma has welcomed the input that the Socialist International Commission for a Sustainable World Society will give government ahead of COP17, the UN Climate Change Conference due in Durban at the end of next month. Delegates from the Commission representing different countries are meeting with the President and other South African representatives in Sandton, north of Johannesburg. Zuma says the Commission has made an invaluable contribution to the success of the talks in Cancun, Mexico. He says he has no doubt that South Africa will also benefit.
The ideas on sustainable development are informed by the need for a delicate balance between, on one hand, growing our economies and addressing the plight of our people, and on the other hand, protecting the environment of our planet. It is from this standpoint that we approach the challenge of climate change.
And finally, a young man has lost his leg and has been airlifted to hospital after he was flung from a moving train near the Cleveland train station in Germiston on the Gauteng's East Rand. Police are investigating the circumstances leading to the accident. AR24 spokesperson Vanessa Jackson.
The man was in his early 20s and was found lying on the gravel next to the tracks. and sadly his right leg had almost been completely ripped from the hip joint. There was nothing further that paramedics could do for the leg, but they treated him extensively for blood loss and other injuries, and while he was airlifted to the Kasani Baragwanath Hospital in Johannesburg. There were no other people injured in the incident, and railway lines had to be closed because the medicopter landed at the scene.
To access more news on your mobile phones, go to www.sabcmobile.co.za/news. Recapping the top story, the government needs to control the country's growth rate if it wants to combat poverty and joblessness.